Shalom Chaverim, welcome back to our discussion of Sichos HaRan. I hope everyone had a Freilichen Purim. I know we certainly did. And I hope everyone has recovered and rested from all the festivities and ready to learn some more. We're actually going to cover two Sichos this time around. We're going to go back into order. We went out of order last week to talk a little bit about some ideas that were relevant to Purim, but we're going to go back in order, and we're going to talk about two really short Sichos, Sichos number 8 and 9. So if you're in the BRI edition, we're on page 116, starting with Sicha number 8. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to read the whole thing because, again, it's very short. It says, when studying subjects dealing with tragedy, such as the laws of mourning, do not delve too deeply. One should not probe too deeply into these matters, for thoughts have great power. Therefore, these subjects should be covered as rapidly as possible. So it's a short sikha, really just 3 sentences long, but there's actually a lot here to unpack. The first sentence is pretty straightforward. He says, when you're studying subjects dealing with tragedy, and there are obviously lots of subjects in Torah dealing with tragedy, such as the laws of mourning, he says you shouldn't go too deeply into those subjects. And he says one should not probe too deeply into these matters, for thoughts have great power. Rabbi Nachman, one of his famous quotes is, "Where your thoughts are, that's where you are." And then the corollary to that is that you should always be thinking of Yerushalayim, because then if you're thinking of it, then in a way you're there. So he's bringing this same idea down, but in a negative way, saying you want to stay away from these sorts of subjects and delving too deeply into them, because your thoughts are incredibly powerful. And he says they have great power. This goes along with Rabbi Nachman's idea that where your thoughts are, you are. And if you're dealing with, subjects of mourning and you're studying them for hours on end or weeks on end, then in a way, you're going to start mourning. That's kind of what he's suggesting. And he says these subjects should be covered as rapidly as possible. It's one of the great sort of misconceptions, I think, about Breslov, that we don't delve deeply into any subject, and that comes from there are some moments in Rabbi Nachman's teachings where he says, the main thing is to cover as much material as you can. So he says, you should move rapidly through any sefer that you're studying, any Torah that you're studying, with the understanding, though, that you should go back and revisit all of these things over and over again so that you get new insights. It's not that we don't delve deeply into things. He's just saying the first time around, you shouldn't really spend too much time and get stuck, just looking at one page of Talmud for hours or weeks on end. But in this case, he really is saying, don't go back and revisit them too often. When we're talking about serious or sad subjects, again, we talk about it all the time. Mitzvah gedolah lihiyos b'simcha tamid is a great mitzvah to be joyful always. It's a famous notion from Breslov thinking, and here he's saying if you're spending all this time paying attention to these sadder subjects, it's going to be impossible for you to maintain that simcha, because again, remember, where your thoughts are, that's where you are, right? So if you're striving to have simcha tamid all the time, right, a continual joy, you want to stay away from these dark subjects. Let's jump and take a look at Sicha number 9, which is even shorter than Sicha number 8. It's actually just one sentence, and it's not even credited to Rabbi Nachman himself. It's Rabbi Nachman telling Reb Nassan something in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov, of course, was Rabbi Nachman's great-grandfather. So he's a direct descendant of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov is, widely regarded as the founder of what we would now call today Hasidus, and Rabbi Nachman was certainly, in that same vein. So he says, in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, a knife should not be given as a gift. So this is an interesting little piece of advice, and it's one of those funny moments in Sichos HaRan where, you can kind of hear Rabbi Nachman just as an aside one day saying, hey, the Baal Shem Tov taught that you should never give a knife as a gift. Well, why would that be? It kind of goes with Sikha number 8 that we just talked about. What is a knife for? A knife is for violence. A knife is for for cutting. It's for shechting. It's for killing someone, perhaps. There's an old idea, that you shouldn't bring a sword or a knife into a shul because it's something that represents violence and death. And if you're coming into a place where you're supposed to be focused on Etz Chaim, right, the tree of life, Torah, you don't want to bring something like that into that space because it can have sort of an impact on you. And he's saying, I think, something similar here, or the Baal Shem Tov was teaching something similar here that Rabbi Nachman then brought down to his own Talmidim. He's saying a knife should not be given as a gift because a knife, again, is associated with violence. It's associated with blood, and it's associated with things that are not pleasant, right? And just like we shouldn't spend too much time delving into subjects that are sad, like mourning, the laws of mourning. That's what Sikha number 8 is about. Sikha number 9 kind of goes along with that idea and says, don't give a knife as a gift because you're sending a message to somebody that's a little bit off, right? If you're giving a gift, right? We just gave Mishloach Manos this past Friday for Purim, right? And if you're giving a gift, you want to bring a smile to somebody's face. You want it to be a positive experience for them, obviously. And what Rabbi Nachman is bringing down here is that, there's certain things that just don't accomplish that don't bring joy and don't bring a smile to the recipient. And a knife might be one of those things. So just a very practical, straightforward lesson here in Sikha number 9. So those are Sichos numbers 8 and 9. We're going to continue in the next lesson, B'siyata Deshmaya. We're going to stick with the regularly scheduled programming, and we're going to look at Sikha number 10 next time, which is we're going to learn more about the Yetzer Hara, which we talked about a couple of Sichos ago. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Be well.